Welcome to a new episode of Edu Stories. Today we are going to talk about how other countries have dealt with the corona crisis and what common experiences there are. My interview partner today is Dr. Elena Shulman. She is representing the European Schoolnet. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Ms. Shulman, can you explain what is the European Schoolnet?
Yes, so European Schoolnet is a consortium of European ministries of education. So it's made up of almost 30, believe at this point, 31 ministries who participate together in projects looking at issues relevant to K through 12 education in Europe, in particular in the use of ICT, teacher training, teacher professional development, and support of new innovative learning scenarios and models in education.
So basically a big think tank on education.
Yes, it's a think tank, but also an active space for research projects, large projects that involve teachers and ministries and industry. So it has many different components. And so there's a think tank component, but an actual training component where the consortium creates MOOCs to train teachers on particular parts of pedagogy involving ICT or STEM education. So it has a lot of different interests. E-safety is a big interest there as well. So it's a far-ranging spectrum of all the things that are important for the K through 12 sector in Europe, especially when it comes to ICT and online resources and training.
So you organized a big virtual exchange with different countries on how they dealt with the corona pandemic. Which countries were involved and what interesting stories did they tell you?
Yes. So the recent activity that you're referring to was a webinar in the context of what we call the Educational Repositories Network and the Learning Resource Exchange. So this is a subgroup of the consortium that is made up of representatives of educational content repositories. So many ministries have their own portals and their own content repositories for teachers. And these are the people who run these repositories, and they have common interests and they share best practices. I want to hear what's going on in other parts, and then sometimes they gather together in specific projects. So there's a network of these repository owners throughout Europe that get together. So this webinar involved them and what's called the Learning Resource Exchange. This is also European Schoolnet's large repository of online educational content, open educational content. And so we sponsor these events. So the Educational Resource Network met to discuss what are the responses to the corona crisis in Europe. How are not just educators responding, but these repositories, these portal owners, these ministries, what are they doing? What are the problems? What are the solutions? And to kind of get the big picture. So some of the participants in the webinar were Italy, Greece, Romania, Ireland, a representative from Germany, and a few other, Belgium, the Flemish component. So there was a wide spectrum of experiences, and there were some interesting things that came out of that, and so we'll discuss them next.
Of course, the countries involved were very different. Some were highly affected, like, for example, Italy, and others were digitalized, as to say so, even before the corona crisis. Did you discover any similarities between these countries?
Well, there's some similarities where, yes, there's a lot of, in theory, digitization in some countries, maybe less in others, but really teachers, for the most part, are not particularly digitally savvy. Most of them are not used to delivering online courses, are not used to using online tools. So even though the infrastructure might be there from the ministry point of view, that this is the use of it, this is the first time that you have the mass of teachers really actually using it. Mm-hmm. So that's a common story, no matter how much has been built up beforehand, the teachers themselves are not necessarily expert in this or comfortable in this. So all of them need to provide support on a mass scale that they hadn't had to face.
Mm-hmm. What would you say were the general learnings at European level?
I think some of the common outcomes of this exchange was the need for multiple ways to support teachers, even though, okay, yes, you have this online platform, you throw all of this content at them, but really you need multifaceted support. For instance, basically help desks. This was really critical for that came up quite a bit. So that when something doesn't work, a teacher can call up or a parent can call up and get actual help from a person. This is critical. So not just, okay, there's a great website, that's not enough. So a robust help desk system, a robust system already working well of perhaps other teachers supporting other teachers, forums, exchange, social networking platforms that either exist already or that some of the ministries created. Opportunities like Greece set up these exchanges where teachers could actually talk to each other and share content and share experiences. So this ability to react and support not just online but on the phone, it has to be kind of a coherent support system, not just assume that if you put it out there, it'll all make sense eventually.
Mm-hmm. Can you explain some of the key lessons learned by the different countries?
So I think one of the key lessons learned is, and they already suspected it, but really the main support that teachers want is from other teachers. Mm-hmm. And so this is the ability to facilitate that is really critical to any kind of success. So in Italy and in Greece and in other cases where the ministries responded by creating opportunities for teachers to collaborate very quickly and effectively with each other, share resources, share experiences. In Italy, they created a series of webinars, or the ability for teachers to share webinars where they actually then shared their experiences so other teachers can view those webinars. So what the ministries could do, these portals can do, is organize them in a way that they're findable and they work. But really, having that peer-to-peer exchange and supporting that peer-to-peer exchange was really a big outcome, an obvious lesson for these organizations.
Do you think the peer-to-peer exchange is something crucial also for the future?
Yeah, it seems that that's if you look at it, what's working. Well, that's what's working, and we know that there's teacher communities and they are exchanging information before this. So now this is on a grand scale, and teachers tend to be more comfortable with other teachers. So how do you get, it's just less intimidating, I guess, to learn, okay, how do I actually turn this on? How do I log in? Right? I mean, it's simple things that they might be embarrassed about. Okay, then another teacher just helps them. So it lowers the anxiety level. So organizations have to respond in a variety of ways. And I think that the robustness of their response has to be the other outcome has to be multiple venues. And for instance, in Greece, they had already, the infrastructure to use television actually to deliver lessons to students and educational content already in place. And so they use that alongside all of the online content. And that really, I think, made the transition to completely distance learning easier on at least the students, for sure. So you have to have a robust infrastructure before you're thrown in this situation to begin with, which is not surprising.
And what are the most important things the Corona crisis taught you for the future?
Taught me for the future? Well, this focus on what are the teachers actually doing, what can be supported that they do in exchanging their experiences. Finding it's difficult to find those, to get into those networks, and so how to identify them, how to support them, how to understand what matters for them.
Are there any things or projects the EUN would like to initiate now on a common ground with the other countries maybe?
Yeah, so right now they're initiating a wide survey actually of teachers to understand what are their practices, what are in response to the corona virus. So they're doing a very large scale survey of what's going on, because it's difficult to just presume. Mm-hmm. So this is one big initiative, and they're trying to work out on what are the new innovative learning scenarios. Maybe blended learning. Mm-hmm. How does ICT support this? What's going to be the future? What are the lessons out of this experience? So they're looking at it very closely and organizing really a wide scale survey to understand and analyze this this situation.
How do you think will the future of education look like, and how has Corona influenced the whole situation?
Well, obviously it's opened up the distance learning and online experience to probably 80% of teachers in Europe who have been avoiding it, thought, okay, this is not the human touch I wanted, not the personal experience. So for good or bad, the door is now open. Mm-hmm. And obviously technology is important, and teachers should be trained better to be comfortable with it. So one of the things that EUN is also doing is looking at how to support not just teachers specifically, but because the ministries do that, but actually to support the trainers of teachers. So to support the initial training of teachers so that they are more comfortable with it, and also to support things like headmasters and principals in actually how to manage all of this, how to organize this kind of blended learning in their schools, how to best understand what technology can and can't do, to do that on that kind of more of a meta level, so that the infrastructure and the social, pedagogical culture is already in place and evolves in response, rather than just sort of feels that it's being placed upon them from the outside. Mm-hmm. So that's what EUN is doing, and looking at who actually needs that support on that kind of European level. And they think it's really the trainers and the headmasters who need that kind of guidance, so that everything else falls into place a lot more smoothly in the future.
Mm-hmm. The EUN is offering guidance or online lectures for educators at European Schoolnet Academy. Can you share some details?
Yes, so there's a series of MOOCs that they're always running, actually a number of MOOCs. You can find that on their website. For instance, there's MOOCs on how to build in inclusion and online learning, a number of MOOCs about STEM education and delivering these experiences in the online platform, training on e-safety. So there's a wide catalog of MOOCs that anybody can join. They're free, and if you can't join, you can watch the recordings and webinars. So there's a wide variety of content already out there that everyone is welcome to take a look and use.
Mm-hmm. Last question: what are the plans for the future for the EUN?
Well, the plans for the future is to really understand the outcomes of the survey and build scenarios and training that can take advantage of what has been learned. And like I said, to focus on certain groups that can actually enable truly blended learning scenarios, new innovative pedagogical approaches that work for teachers, work for students, and that will respond more flexibly to whatever happens in the future. Mm-hmm. So that's looking forward toward learning something good out of a very difficult situation.
Thank you so much for taking time and telling us what other countries' experiences look like and what action might be taken at European level.
Thank you.